Welcome back. All right, so some news of the day and a minor trade from last night to have a little discussion with. I'm wearing a Ducks jersey because I feel that they got the best player in the trade, admittedly, not knowing a lot about the player going the other way. So we know that the Habs are shut down, and the conversation on TV here from Canadian media has been, how are they going to make this work? And Mark Bergevin kind of comes out and confirms what we all kind of already knew, which is the only way to make this work and keep the same end date is to move other teams' schedules around. And it's got me wondering, so when the American divisions were going through this and schedules are being, completely revamped, were people on this side of the border not paying as much attention to it? Because, of course, they're going to have to make changes to other team schedules. I even said at the time, I'm kind of surprised there aren't other Canadian teams, Edmonton, Ottawa, trying to figure out a way to play a game. They're done with each other, right? Yeah. So just make changes this week to figure out some matchup they can have and cancel one here and move one there and all that. But here we are. So it's going to affect all of the team schedules in all likelihood. It could affect all seven. It might affect only four or five, but they're going to have to move games around. So expect there may be an announcement on that today. It may happen before this video goes live. Absolutely possible. I won't do a video specifically on that change. I've been staying away from doing videos specifically on what schedule changes take place because there are a lot, and it's a lot of numbers and a lot of dates, and it's not that big a deal. He's not going to knock that calendar down, right? He shouldn't. Pretty secure up there. All right. Alexander Volkov is now a member of the Anaheim Ducks, and I like this pickup for the Ducks. 19 games, 3 goals, 2 assists. It's another young forward. It makes me wonder if there's another deal coming. This is where I start thinking, okay, so you add him to the roster. Is one of the young forwards they have going to get moved now for something else? And the interesting part, too, is they give up a draft pick. Now, it's a 2023 pick, and this year's draft, of course, is considered a wild card. Next year's draft is considered pretty deep. 2023, early reports are it should be a good draft. I think, really, in this day and age, it's hard to have a bad draft because how much scouting is done and how many good players there are. This year's just a wild card. I don't think it's a bad draft by any stretch. It's just, yeah, your guess is as good as anybody else's, I think, once you get past the first, I'll say, 15 players. So, a 2023 seventh round pick, and Antoine Marat is the other player going to the Tampa Bay Lightning. He played in San Diego this year, 21 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points, and found out he had been traded right after the game last night, where he scored in the last second. So, yeah, we'll see how things go. He's a center, 5'10", and 60th overall pick in 2017. So they're both second round picks from 2017. Volkov, more value, of course, and this is likely, going to have money involved too from the Tampa Bay side. They're always looking ahead at their cap situation later and saying, okay, so how can we kick the can further down the road with worrying about cap situations? So Volkov, I think, is a good pickup for Anaheim, but again, it feels kind of redundant with some of the other forwards they have, and it makes me wonder if there's another move coming where maybe they do move one of their younger forwards. Rick Bowness, he's an optimist. He's hoping that we'll see Radulov back in the lineup this weekend. So not tonight, but sometime this weekend. And again, with Radulov, it just feels like this is going to be an in the lineup, out of the lineup thing, that it's going to be kind of constant. We're going to see it a lot. And it's just sort of you have to roll with it. So Bonus dealing with a lot of injuries. A lot of teams are. Some of them are dealing with them on a much more desperate basis than others, where they're losing maybe all their forwards down the middle. They might be losing all their defensemen. Maybe their goalies are all hurt. Everybody seems to be dealing with this during this brutal schedule we're going through. Interesting news out of Ottawa as well today is that Wolanin's on waivers. So Wolanin came into this year and he was seen as maybe an outside shot at a top 4 spot, probably top 6. Of course, he's been dealing with injury. He had an injury, kept him out of most of last season, and it's not clicking for him. So Wolanin's on waivers. I don't think he gets picked, but it seems to be really unpredictable as to who does or doesn't get picked. I don't think Vancouver swoops in with this one because I think on the blue line they're okay right now. And I don't know that Wolanin I see as necessarily an upgrade over what's there. And then you have to waive somebody off Vancouver, so right. But yeah, we'll see if Wolanin clears. I think he does, but again, if they're a goalie, they get picked. Goalies automatic. That's yeah. Goalie, you're a goalie. We need you. We've only got 6, and this year you need 7. Everybody needs 7, so we need another goalie. St. Louis, sad news came out yesterday that there was a car crash that took the life of Bob Plager, who was age 78. Legend in the area, legend with hockey players as well. There were a lot of outpourings on social media about him, his life, and what he meant to other people. So, as always, my sincerest condolences to anyone who knew him, to his family, to his friends, and to people affected by this. There are some great hockey people. Bob Plager, by everything I've ever read and heard about him, one of those great hockey people and a legend in St. Louis. So look for probably a pregame ceremony where they talk about him before the first game played at home in St. Louis after this, and then probably something more substantial next year where we've got fans back in attendance. Some kind of a night for him, I would think. Probably happens with St. Louis. So, yeah. There is no great segue from that. So, again, my condolences. And we move on to something we discussed yesterday. Tim Peel. He's not actually fired, right? And I know, and you know, people are like, yeah, you need to change your title because he's not fired. Okay, but if you go to your job and they say, listen, Billy, you've been with us how long? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, shut up. So, we've decided you don't work here anymore. Well, we're not really firing you. We've decided you're just going to work from home. And you'll still get your benefits when it's all done. But yeah, you're not working here anymore. Yeah, we know you want to work tonight, but you're not working here anymore. You will never work for us again. This is scorched earth. But we're going to make sure you finish out your year. We know you were retiring. That's great. But you're done. You're done. That to me says fired. It does. So to me, it's the same thing. Saying he will never work a game again. It's a way of saying he's gone. He is no longer with us. And the idea that, well, he wasn't fired, he may not have been able to. Because of contracts being the way that they are, the NHL may not have been able to without dealing with some kind of a major fracas with the union or with just referees in general. So he's not going to work here anymore, so things are just going to work themselves out naturally. To quote Office Space. He just won't be. Well, in that case, it was he won't be receiving a paycheck, so things will just work themselves out naturally. In this case, he'll be receiving a paycheck. Things have already worked themselves out naturally. And it's interesting because it's stirred up a big conversation around the hockey world, which I really hope doesn't get stomped out because it's an interesting conversation to have. Makeup calls. So the idea that you're a referee and you miss a call and you look on the replay and go, that was clearly a trip. I missed that. And then the next time somebody on the ice looks the wrong way at the other team, you go, that's penalty. And you're doing that as a makeup because you missed the other one. I've never been a fan. I never have. And most players that were interviewed in the article I was reading today, they're not fans of the idea either. The interesting thing is that what happened with Tim Peel, where he said, I got to give you guys a penalty, so the Nashville bench told them. Nick Backstrom from the Washington Capitals said, honestly, I've never heard it in my 14 years here. He's never heard a referee talk like that. It's just bewildering. Paul Maurice was talked to about the whole game management idea and how they need to manage the game. And I understand that part of it. I do. I'm not naive on any of this. I understand the game management part. I've watched thousands and thousands of games. But Paul Maurice said what you're hoping for is an understandable standard. And that's what we're all shooting for. So when I see people saying, well, they can't call the rule book because then, there's going to be tons of penalties. For a very short period, there will be. When they cracked down on slashing, there was a lot of conversations about, there'll be 10 slashing penalties a game against everybody. No, players adapted. They changed their game. It's the same as when scoring goes up, and then it'll usually come back down shortly after because coaches will adapt to changes in the game. Players will adapt to changes in how the game is called. As long as players know what they can or cannot get away with, that's where the standard should be. And for years, the problem has been that guy got a penalty, and there's the announcer saying, well, there's not much there, or it's hooking, and they'll go, well, he didn't really hook him, but that's a makeup call for the one the referee missed earlier in the game. well, yeah, that wasn't really a slash, but that's the makeup call for what happened earlier. It's frustrating because on some level it's again, it's that whole two wrongs don't make a right, which Homer Simpson said they do. Two wrongs make a right, Lisa. But it's one of my favorites. I absolutely love that quote. And to every time I hear two wrongs don't make a right, I hear Homer's voice in my head. Yeah, they do. So it's a problem, right? And I think there's a conversation to be had, and I really hope the NHL has that, and it should be had with coaches, with players, with officials, and there should be some really honest conversations. Players involved in controversial plays, referees involved in controversial calls, coaches that are known for being kind of verbal with referees. We should get people into a room together and have an actual debate on how things should go. Because it's not that it's really, really awful. It's not. It is the toughest job, I think, of any kind of officiating in sports. Although I have always marveled at umpires. I've honestly, umpires, I marvel at them that the ball's going 93 miles per hour and they can tell whether it crossed here or over here. Here it's a ball and here it's a strike. And they get it. And it's like it just barely nicks the corner and they get it. And I'm like, how did they see it nicked the front corner of the plate? That's fantastic. I don't, my hat's off to them. Well, it's not actually off, but you know what I mean. It is tough, and for referees at ice level, it is hard to see everything that's going on. That's why there's two. There's been discussions of whether or not there should be one referee on the ice and an eye in the sky that makes calls as well. The question has been logistics. Does the eye in the sky then get to blow the whistle? Does he have access to something where he can signal a stoppage of play? And does it become chaos? So there's been discussions of making real changes. They've never gone anywhere. And I think the league would prefer not to have too much of a discussion with this. Because, again, I don't think this happens often. Again, Nick Backstrom saying 14 years you never heard a referee talk like that. But it would be nice to have some kind of a standard where it takes a lot of the suspicion out. And just the whole makeup call thing, I really think that needs to go. If a referee misses a call, he misses it. And because again, if you're in a situation where a player ends up in the penalty box, it shouldn't be there. Maybe he's one of your best penalty killers, right? Or maybe in the call that they missed, it was one of the best penalty killers, and then the guy they call the penalty on never kills a penalty. Like, there's a lot of reasons to look at this and go, well, wait a minute, that's not exactly the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see if this just blows over. Probably will. It probably will. And we'll see whether or not they say or do anything with it. And I honestly, for me, I would love to sit down with like a Kerry Fraser and Andy Van Hellemond, any referee that's ever called a game. And I'm thinking like way back to Stewart and all the referees I watched growing up. I would have loved to have sat down with any of them and had a conversation about the game and about calls they made. And I think one of my favorite conversations with a referee could ever be to be able to sit and have a normal conversation about, so this call you missed here, what happened? And I think it would be an interesting conversation to have. But it's one of the reasons why referees aren't as well known. Why when I start rattling off names of referees, it'll normally be the older ones. Because we knew who they were. They had their names on the backs of their jerseys. And they didn't wear helmets for a lot of the time that I watched growing up. So you knew who was refereeing the game. You could see and you go, oh, it's Bill. It's Kerry. It's you know what kind of game you were going to get. And whether or not you felt like your team was already losing because the referee calling the game. And now they don't. It's not nearly as clear cut when it comes to referees because you have two per game and they all wear helmets. They don't have their names on the backs of their jerseys. They try to make this as neutral as possible. Doesn't always work. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. And we'll see whether or not the officiating thing goes anywhere. Even if I could talk to Stephen Walcom right now, that'd be a great conversation to have. And just to have conversations about standards of officiating and everything. Remember, when I go to hockey games, as much fun as it is to watch the stuff on the ice, I'm the guy who's always looking around at the entire arena and going, oh, what's that guy doing over there? That's interesting. That guy's right over there, right where the Zambonis. What's going on over there? I like the whole arena experience. I highly recommend it. And the best spot in any building is usually at the top of the lower bowl. You can see most of what's going on. You're still close enough to the ice to see everything, and you really feel like you're a part of it, and yet you're still able to see each corner of the ice and all that. And it's easier to get mad about penalties that aren't called and penalties that are. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot. The channel's getting close-ish to 184,000 subscribers. Thank you to each and every person who has hit the like or subscribe button or both. Makes people happy when they hit both. And it does. I don't know. It's science. It's science. Can't argue with science. But thank you guys for everybody who has. And if you haven't, give it a try. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.